The stars outside the viewport looked cold and distant. Commander Park stood near the observation window of the human freighter Steadfast, watching the massive Galactic Union ship slowly move closer. The alien vessel was beautiful in a strange way. It was long and silver, with curves that no human engineer would ever design, but did not feel admiration. She felt worry. They were coming. Behind her, the crew prepared for the inspection. There were 12 humans on the ship, 12 people from Earth, the planet that other species called had never liked that name, but she understood why they used it. Earth was not a gentle place. It had storms that could destroy cities. It had predators with sharp teeth and claws. It had diseases that killed millions. The gravity was strong, the sun was bright, and survival was never guaranteed. To the aliens of the Galactic Union, humans were monsters. They were creatures that should not exist. The fact that humanity had survived on such a hostile world made other species afraid, and fear often turned into hate. Captain Lee walked up beside her. He was a calm man in his late 40s, with gray hair at his temples and steady hands. He had been a captain for 15 years, and he had dealt with aliens many times before. "They will look for problems," said quietly. "They always do." Nodded. "They hate us more than most." "Yes, but we will be professional. We will be calm. We will give them no reason to make trouble." Wanted to believe him, but she had met officers before. They did not need reasons to make trouble. They created reasons. The docking clamps connected with a loud metal sound. The Steadfast shook slightly as the two ships joined together, took a deep breath and straightened her uniform. It was time. The airlock opened with a hiss of pressure. The delegation stepped through and felt her stomach tighten. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their bodies were thin and delicate, like they were made of glass. Their skin was pale and slightly transparent and could see faint blue veins underneath. They had 4 arms, each one long and ending in fingers that looked like spider legs. Their faces were flat, with large compound eyes that reflected the light in strange patterns. There were 6 of them, 5 guards and 1 leader. The leader stepped forward. His name was High Officer Telos and had read his file. He was old for nearly 200 years. He had spent his entire career in the Galactic Union military, and he was known for one thing above all else. He hated humans. Telos looked around the airlock with obvious disgust. His compound eyes moved slowly, taking in every detail. When he finally looked at the humans, his thin mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "These are he asked. His voice was high and sharp, like metal scraping against metal. "They look fragile." Captain stepped forward and gave a small bow. "High Officer Telos, we are honored by your inspection. My crew is ready to assist you in any way." Telos did not return the bow. He walked past without a word and began to circle around the other crew members. He moved slowly, examining each human like they were animals in a cage. He stopped in front of security officer. She was a young woman, 28 years old, with short black hair and sharp eyes. She stood perfectly still as Telos leaned close to her face. "Your muscles are very developed," Telos said. "Like a beast of burden. Do all human females look so rough?" Did not answer. Her face remained calm, but could see her hands tighten slightly at her sides. Telos laughed. It was an ugly sound, like glass breaking. The other joined in, their high voices filling the airlock. "Come," Telos said, turning away from. "Show me this primitive vessel. I want to see what passes for technology among your kind." The inspection began. Walked at the back of the group, watching everything. She saw how Telos touched the walls with his fingers and made faces of disgust. She saw how the guards whispered to each other and laughed at human equipment. She saw how her crew members kept their faces blank and their voices polite, even as the aliens insulted everything they had built. It was hard, harder than had expected. Humans were proud. They had fought their way up from caves and jungles. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had built cities and ships and traveled to the stars, and now these thin, weak aliens were laughing at them. But kept her anger locked away. This was not the time, this was not the place. They moved through the cargo bay, the engine room, the living quarters. Everywhere they went, Telos found something to criticize. The temperature was wrong. The food was stored incorrectly. The weapons were too dangerous. "You keep so many weapons," Telos said, looking at the security locker. "Why do you need so much violence?" "Standard safety equipment," replied, "for emergencies." "Emergencies." Telos made the word sound like a joke. "Your kind sees emergencies everywhere. Perhaps that is why you are so aggressive. You cannot stop fighting even when there is nothing to fight." Said nothing, there was nothing to say. The inspection continued, and with every passing minute felt the tension growing. Something was wrong. They were not just looking for problems, they were looking for something else. They were looking for a reaction. Looked at her crew members. She saw the anger in their eyes hidden behind masks of calm. She saw their tight jaws and clenched fists. They were all feeling it. They were pushing them, testing them, waiting for someone to break. And knew with terrible certainty that before this inspection was over, someone would. 3 hours passed like 3 years. The moved through the steadfast with slow, deliberate steps, finding fault with everything they saw. High Officer Telos seemed to enjoy the process. His compound eyes would examine something small and unimportant, and then he would speak in his sharp voice about how primitive it was. Commander Park followed the group in silence. Her legs were tired from standing, but she did not show it. Humans were strong. Humans did not complain. That was what it meant to come from a. The inspection had moved to the secondary cargo bay. This was where Ensign Shin worked. He was young, only 23 years old, with a round face and eager eyes. He had joined the crew 6 months ago, fresh from the colony world where he was born. He had never met before. He had never experienced this particular kind of hatred. Watched him standing at attention near his workstation. His uniform was clean and pressed. His tools were organized perfectly on the wall behind him. He had prepared well for this inspection. He wanted to make a good impression. Poor boy, thought. He did not understand yet. Telos walked toward with that slow, circling movement that had come to recognize. It was how a predator moved when it found weak prey, except there were not predators. On their gentle, there were no predators. Everything was soft and safe and peaceful. That was why they did not understand humans. They had never needed to fight for survival. They had never felt the fear of being hunted. They thought their cruelty was strength, but it was nothing. It was the cruelty of a child pulling wings off insects. "You," Telos said, stopping in front of, "what is your function?" Swallowed nervously. "I am Ensign Shin, High Officer. I maintain the cargo systems and assist with loading operations." Telos looked at his hands. The ensign had worked hard his entire life. On the colony world, everyone worked. There were no machines to do everything for you. His hands showed that work. They were rough and calloused, with small scars from accidents and hard labor. "Your hands," Telos said, "they are damaged. You perform physical labor." "Yes, High Officer. I maintain the cargo systems." Telos turned to look at the other. They were all watching with amusement in their strange eyes. "Do you hear this? Even their young ones are servants. They make their children do the work of machines." They laughed. It was that same ugly sound like breaking glass. His face turned red, but he did not respond. He kept his eyes forward and his mouth closed. "On our world," Telos continued, "we do not damage ourselves with labor. We have technology. We have dignity. But you're kind. You are barely above animals. You use your bodies like tools because your minds are too primitive to create better ways." Felt her anger rising. She pushed it down. "Not now, not yet." Captain stepped forward slightly. "High Officer, perhaps we should continue the inspection. There is still much to see." Telos ignored him. He was enjoying himself too much. He leaned closer too, and his voice became softer, more dangerous. "Tell me, young human, do you enjoy being a servant? Do you enjoy living on this ugly ship, doing work that any machine could do? Or do you sometimes dream of something better, something more civilized?" His jaw tightened, could see the muscles in his neck tensing. He was fighting to control himself. He was fighting to stay calm. "I am proud to serve on this ship," said quietly, "and I am proud to be human." The cargo bay went silent. Even the guards stopped their whispering. Tella stared at with those compound eyes and for a moment thought she saw surprise there, perhaps even respect. But no, that was not what she saw. What she saw was anger. "Proud," Tellus repeated. "Proud to be proud to come from a world of violence and death, proud to be a monster." He turned away from and walked toward a stack of cargo containers. His 4 hands moved quickly, pulling up data on his tablet device. He studied the information for a long moment. "These containers," he said. "The manifest says they were loaded on 4471, but your dating system shows 4472. There is a discrepancy." Captain frowned. "I believe that is correct, High Officer. The containers were loaded on." "I did not ask you," Tellus pointed at. "You explain this error." Looked at the containers, then at the tablet in the High Officer's hands. His brow furrowed as he thought. "High Officer," said carefully, "I believe there is no error. Our dating system uses a different starting point than the galactic standard. The conversion would show that 4471 in galactic dates equals 4472 in human dates. The manifest is correct." Silence again, heavier this time. Closed her eyes. She knew what was coming, had done nothing wrong. He had answered honestly and correctly. But that did not matter. He had corrected a superior. He had made Telos look foolish in front of his guards. In culture, that was unforgivable. Telos turned slowly to face. His 4 arms hung at his sides but could see them trembling slightly. His compound eyes had gone dark, the light no longer reflecting in them. "You dare," Telos whispered. "You dare to correct me. You dare to speak to me as if you were my equal." His face went pale. He opened his mouth to apologize, to explain, to do anything that might calm the situation. But he never got the chance. Had been standing at the edge of the cargo bay, watching everything with those sharp eyes of hers. She was security. It was her job to watch. And she had been watching Telos very carefully since the moment he arrived. She saw his arm begin to move before anyone else did. She saw the hatred in his eyes. She saw what was about to happen. And she began to walk forward. The moment came without warning. 1 second, Telos was standing in front of with anger burning in his compound eyes. The next second, his primary arm was swinging through the air with all the force his thin body could produce. The slap hit across the face. It was not a gentle touch. It was not a warning tap. It was a full strike, delivered with the intention to hurt and humiliate. The sound of it echoed through the cargo bay like a gunshot. His head snapped to the side, and blood began to flow from his split lip. The young ensign stumbled backward but did not fall. He stood there with his hand touching his bleeding mouth, his eyes wide with shock. He had never been struck before, not like this, not by someone who was supposed to be civilized. Time seemed to stop. Felt her heart pounding in her chest. She looked around the cargo bay and saw the same expression on every human face. Shock, anger, and something else, something deeper and more dangerous. Every human in that room had felt it. That ancient instinct that lived deep inside their minds. The instinct that had kept their ancestors alive for millions of years on a world full of predators and dangers. The instinct that whispered one simple truth: "We do not submit." They did not understand what they had done. They were smiling, all of them, including Telos. They thought they had won. They thought they had proven their superiority. They had struck a human and the human had not fought back. In their minds, this meant that humans were weak. Humans could be controlled. Humans would accept their place at the bottom of the galactic order. They were wrong. Telos laughed that ugly breaking glass laugh. "Do you see?" he said to his guards. "They are like trained animals. You can hit them and they do nothing. They know their place." He reached out with one of his secondary arms and grabbed Chin, forcing the young man to look up at him. Blood dripped from his lip and fell onto the deck. "Say thank you," Telos commanded. "Thank me for teaching you discipline. Thank me for showing you what happens when animals forget their place." His eyes had gone strange. There was no fear in them anymore. There was no shock. There was only something cold and hard like stone. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply stared at Telos with those stone eyes. Saw it happening. She saw the change in her crew members. The masks of calm were slipping. The professional attitudes were cracking. Something was building in that cargo bay. Something that had been building for years, for decades, for as long as humans had been treated as monsters by species who had never known real danger. And then took another step forward. She had been moving since before the slap. Slow steps, quiet steps like a hunter approaching prey. Her hand had drifted down to her belt where her hung in its sheath. Standard issue for human security officers. A simple tool, really. Just a blade that vibrated at very high frequencies, allowing it to cut through almost anything. They had never seen it in action. They had read about human weapons in their studies. They knew that humans were violent creatures who had invented countless ways to kill each other. But reading about something and seeing it were very different things. Telos was still holding Chin when stopped walking. She was only 3 meters away now, close enough to see every detail of the high officer's face, close enough to smell the strange scent of his alien body, close enough to hear his breathing. "Release him," said. Her voice was calm, perfectly calm. There was no anger in it, no emotion at all. It was the voice of someone who had already made a decision, someone who had already accepted what was about to happen. Telos turned his head to look at her. His compound eyes blinked slowly, like he could not quite understand what he was seeing. A human female was speaking to him, giving him an order. This did not make sense in his world. "What did you say?" he asked. "Release him," repeated, "now." Telos let go of Chin and turned his full body toward. He was tall, much taller than her. He looked down at her with contempt in his eyes. "You dare give me commands? You dare speak to me like this? I am High Officer Telos of the Galactic Union. I have authority over every creature in this sector. You are nothing. You are less than nothing. You are a..." Did not respond to his words. She simply looked at him with eyes that had gone as cold and hard as... Her hand rested on the handle of her. "You struck a member of my crew," she said. "You drew blood from someone under my protection. Do you understand what that means?" Telos laughed again. "It means I have disciplined an animal. It means I have shown your kind where you belong, beneath us, serving us, obeying us." "No," said, "it means you attacked us." She drew thee in one smooth motion. The weapon hummed to life, the blade glowing faintly as it vibrated faster than the eye could see. Telos's eyes went wide. His guards reached for their weapons. But they were too slow. Humans were faster than much faster. On Earth, speed meant survival. The humans who could not react quickly died. They were eaten by predators. They were killed by falling rocks. They were drowned by sudden floods. Only the fast ones survived. Only the fast ones had children. And was very, very fast. She moved like lightning. She moved like death itself. And in the time it took Telos to raise his arms in defense, she had already begun her strike. The cargo bay erupted into screams. They had studied humans for many years. They had read reports about Earth and its dangers. They knew the numbers. Earth's gravity was strong, nearly twice what they had. Earth's atmosphere contained a gas called oxygen that was technically a poison to most species. Earth's sun bombarded the surface with radiation that would kill unprotected in minutes. They knew that humans had evolved to survive in this hellish environment. They knew that human bones were dense and strong. They knew that human muscles were powerful compared to most species. They knew that humans had once hunted large predators with nothing but pointed sticks. But knowing these facts and understanding them were very different things. High Officer Telos understood this difference in the last 5 seconds of his life. 1 second. Crossed the 3 meters between them in a single explosive movement. Her legs, built to function under Earth's crushing gravity, launched her forward with terrifying speed. To Telos, she seemed to blur. His compound eyes, evolved to track slow-moving creatures on a peaceful world, could barely follow her. The inner hand hummed with deadly energy. The blade vibrated thousands of times per second, creating a cutting edge that could slice through metal like paper. It was a human weapon designed by humans for humans. It was efficient. It was brutal. It was perfect. 2 seconds. Telos tried to step backward. His body, light and delicate from evolution on a low-gravity world, responded slowly. His forearms began to rise in a defensive gesture. This was instinct. On his, raising your arms showed surrender. It showed that you did not want to fight. Conflicts were resolved through submission and negotiation, not violence. But was not from his world. She was from Earth. And on Earth, when someone attacked you, you did not negotiate. You did not submit. You fought back with everything you had because submission meant death. 3 seconds. The cut through Telos's rising arms like they were made of water. They had thin bones, hollow like a bird's, designed to save weight in their low-gravity environment. Human bones were solid and heavy, filled with dense marrow. Human bones could survive falls and impacts that would shatter skeletons to powder. The blade did not slow down. It passed through both primary arms and continued its arc toward Telos's neck. Blue blood sprayed across the cargo bay floor. Telos's mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. His brain had not yet processed what was happening. It was too fast. Everything was too fast. 4 seconds. The other humans in the cargo bay were moving now. They had drawn their own weapons the moment moved. They did not need to communicate. They did not need orders. They simply acted, working together with the coordination that came from shared instinct and shared training. Captain Lee had his sidearm pointed at the nearest guard before the alien could touch his weapon. Commander Park had positioned herself between the exit, blocking any escape. Even Shin, blood still dripping from his split lip, had grabbed a heavy tool from his workstation and raised it like a club. The guards froze. They were not soldiers, not really. They had never faced real violence. They had never been in a situation where their lives depended on their reactions. They were administrators with weapons, not warriors. The humans were warriors, every one of them. Earth had made sure of that. 5 seconds. The completed its arc. It passed through Telos's neck with almost no resistance. The high officer's head separated from his body and fell toward the deck. His compound eyes were still wide with surprise. His mouth was still open in that unfinished scream. The head hit the floor with a wet, heavy sound. It rolled once, twice, and then stopped. Telos's body remained standing for a moment, blue blood pumping from the stump of his neck, before it collapsed in a heap of thin limbs and torn uniform. Silence filled the cargo bay. Complete, absolute silence. Then they started screaming. They scrambled backward, tripping over each other in their panic. Their high-pitched voices filled the air with sounds of terror and disbelief. They had never seen anything like this. They had never imagined that this was possible. One moment their leader was alive, laughing at the primitive humans. The next moment his head was lying on the floor, staring at nothing with dead eyes. Stood over the body, her still humming in her hand. Blue blood dripped from the blade and splattered on her boots. Her face showed no emotion, no triumph, no regret, only cold, hard determination. Commander's voice cut through the chaos. Nobody moves. The guards looked at her. They looked at the weapons pointed at them. They looked at the body of their leader on the floor, and they understood something that their species had never truly understood before. Humans were not animals pretending to be civilized. They were predators who had learned to wear masks of civilization. And when those masks came off, when the thin layer of politeness was stripped away, what remained underneath was something that the galaxy had never seen before. Without restraints. The guards dropped their weapons. They raised their forearms in surrender. They submitted completely, absolutely, without any attempt at resistance. They had learned their lesson. But the lesson was far from over. The Galactic Union Tribunal was held on Station Prime, the largest space station in the known galaxy. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in the Great Chamber to witness humanity answer for the killing of High Officer Telos. The chamber was massive. It rose up like a cathedral, with seats arranged in circles around a central platform. Thousands of alien faces looked down at that platform where Captain Lee stood alone. Behind him, visible through a transparent barrier, sat the rest of the steadfast crew. Sat among them, her face calm and unreadable. The ambassador spoke first. His name was, and he was old even by standards. His translucent skin had turned gray with age, and his forearms trembled as he pointed at the humans. "Murder," shouted, his voice cracking with emotion. "Cold-blooded murder. High Officer Telos was performing an authorized inspection when he was attacked without warning. His head was cut from his body by that savage creature." He pointed directly at. The crowd murmured. Many species nodded in agreement. They were well-liked in the Galactic Union. They were peaceful. They were civilized. They did not cut off heads. "We demand justice," continued. "We demand that the human female be executed for her crime. We demand that humanity be removed from the Galactic Union. These have proven that they cannot be trusted. They are too violent, too dangerous. They do not belong among civilized species." The murmuring grew louder, waited patiently for silence. When it finally came, he stepped forward and spoke in a clear, steady voice. "High Officer Telos struck an unarmed member of my crew," he said. "He drew blood from a human who had done nothing wrong. Under the Universal Rights Accord, Section 7, any sentient being has the right to defend themselves and their fellow crew from physical assault." Made a sound of disgust. He slapped the creature, a disciplinary gesture, a correction for insubordinate behavior. Your officer responded by cutting off his head. "Yes," said simply, "she did." The chamber went quiet. Nobody had expected him to admit it so directly. Stared at him with wide compound eyes, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. Turned to address the full assembly. "Let me tell you something about humans. Let me tell you about our world. Earth has a gravity that would crush most of your species. Our atmosphere is filled with oxygen, which is a highly reactive gas that causes explosions and fire. Our sun sends radiation that would kill unprotected in minutes." He paused, letting the words sink in. "On Earth, there are creatures with teeth as long as your arm. There are snakes with poison that can stop your heart in seconds. There are insects that carry diseases that have killed billions of humans throughout our history. Every moment of every day, something on our planet is trying to kill us." The crowd was silent now, completely silent. "We survived," continued. "We did not just survive, we conquered. We became the dominant species on a world that tried every single day to destroy us. And do you know how we did it? We did it by being fast, by being strong, by being absolutely ruthless when threatened." He turned back to face the ambassador. High Officer Telos thought he could strike a human and face no consequences. He thought we would submit like the gentle species you are used to dealing with. He was wrong. Commander Park stood from her seat behind the barrier. The guards moved toward her, but she ignored them. She walked to the edge of the barrier and spoke loud enough for the entire chamber to hear. "On Earth, a slap is not discipline, it is assault. It is an attack, and when a human is attacked, we do not file complaints, we do not negotiate, we respond with immediate and overwhelming force. This is not brutality. This is not savagery. This is survival. This is why they call our world a. She let those words hang in the air for a long moment. Your officer thought he was dealing with animals. He discovered too late that he was dealing with predators. The apex predators of a world that makes every other planet in this galaxy look like a vacation resort. The tribunal deliberated for 3 hours. During that time, the human delegation waited in a small room adjacent to the main chamber. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say. They had done what they had done. They had responded to an attack the only way humans knew how. When the verdict came, it surprised everyone except the humans. Was cleared of all charges. The tribunal ruled that her actions fell under justified defense against extreme provocation. Section 7 of the Universal Rights Accord was explicit. No species had the right to physically assault members of another species without facing consequences. But the ruling carried a message that went far beyond the legal words. It was a message to every species in the Galactic Union, a warning that would spread across every world and every station in the galaxy. Do not touch the humans. Do not threaten them. Do not hurt them, because if you do, they will not complain, they will not negotiate, they will not submit. They will remove your head from your body in 5 seconds flat. The human delegation left Station Prime 3 days later. As they walked through the corridors toward their ship, noticed something strange. Every alien they passed stepped aside. Every alien lowered their eyes. Every alien gave them space. Not out of respect, out of fear. Shin walked beside her. The cut on his lip had healed, leaving only a small scar. He carried himself differently now. Prouder. He had learned something on the Steadfast that no academy could teach. He had learned what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of species who had never known real danger. "Do you think they will leave us alone now?" asked quietly. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had shown its teeth. "For a while," she said, "until they forget, until they think we have become soft and civilized, until they convince themselves that we are not really dangerous. And then we will remind them again." The Steadfast undocked from Station Prime and turned toward the stars. Behind them, the galaxy watched with new eyes. They had announced themselves, and nothing would ever be quite the same again.